All right, we are live from the Hammock Purple Friday podcast here. This is our first video, I think, with all three of us doing this.
Mhm.
Trey and
Yeah.
I used to do this a while ago until Facebook had their issues, but we found a new platform. So hopefully, we'll see how this works.
Yes, indeed.
Um, but anyway, before we get started, I want to send a shout out to the Baltimore Orioles just because I know we're getting the football season. Orioles, I think, have the second best record in baseball right now. They had a heartbreaker last night to the Astros. They were up at one point, I think, like 6-1, something like that. And then, the Astros are like the defending champs. They came out there and they made it a game. But at the end of the day, it's one loss. I saw the comments. People were acting like the season was over already.
Yeah.
um, but also, I don't know if you guys heard. Speaking of when that went down, there were chants during the game about free Kevin Brown. So for those of you that don't know, Kevin Brown is a broadcaster for the Baltimore Orioles. He's on Masson, and he made a during the Rays series, I think back in July. He made he just stated the fact like the Orioles hadn't won a series there, and what they were it was like 5 or 6 years or something like that. Like
Mhm.
the last 15 series they've played against the Rays, they haven't beaten them in Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay. They did ended up winning that series in July. However, once that series was over, we haven't seen him. I didn't even know this was happening until a couple of days ago when they mentioned, oh, he's been suspended indefinitely. And everybody was like, oh, I'm expecting some, he said something on camera. He said something derogatory. Like, nah, this was literally just him reading out a stat saying that the Orioles hadn't been good since 2015 or
Right.
2016. And the fans kind of made Angelos and the ownership and the front office kind of hear it, and it's just sad that the Angelos family had to kind of put their foot in their mouths at this point when the Orioles are trending upwards. Not only are they looking at the playoff berth, but looking at possibly winning the division as well. First time I think since 2014. And not even that, they were broadcasting that they were mentioning the Astros Orioles matchup. I got an alert on my phone saying possible ALCS matchup. And I was like, I know we jumping the gun a little bit here,
Yeah.
about them getting to the ALC. We're just happy they make it to the playoffs. But AL, like
Mhm.
this team has been good, even hot, and it just kind of was a little bit, of a downer that I didn't even know about this Kevin Brown situation, but apparently the ownership is bringing him back Friday. He will be calling the Friday game. So I'm glad that the fans, at least, and a lot of the other, it seemed like people on local sports media kind of called the Orioles out on that.
Yeah.
That was it was a shame that even came. Like, come on, so there are a lot of broadcasters that have been suspended for a lot of things
Yeah.
over the last few
A
years.
lot worse.
Just saying the obvious.
They must have had something personal going on in the background somewhere. Like it couldn't have just been that.
I don't,
That made no
and
sense.
like again, I don't know what else is going to come out about that. I don't know what else we're going to hear.
Yeah.
Um, but as of right now, um, it just doesn't. That didn't look good for that. Like, there's already been talks with fans wanting to get the Angels to sell the franchise to somebody else, and I think this is going to even amp it up even more. So
Yeah.
I just didn't think it was warranted at all. Like, it didn't make any sense. But anyway, shout out to the players, the Orioles, the Brandon Hyde, the guys on the field, and
Mhm.
everybody, the front office, and ownership. Get your stuff together. But we're gonna get this started real quick. We're gonna talk about this college football realignment. Um, as we've all seen, um, the last this probably started. It kind of started with the ACC a few years ago when like Boston College came over and Clemson and Miami, a few other schools like came into the ACC um, when the Big East wasn't really handling for them. But the last year or so, even in the last 6 months, it's been nuts. I can't even keep track now of all the teams. At this point now, they said the Pac-12 has 5 teams left. They said it could be by the end of the week, maybe even be 4 teams left. They said I think Utah is still in there. I think Utah State is still there, BYU. But I said even those schools are looking for a way out. Some people have said it's going to ruin. It's going to ruin like the pageantry. It's going to ruin the rivalry. Some of the rivalries are going to be gone because they're going to be split across. Especially, the Big Ten now I think has several schools. Like they're going to be, or they're getting Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA in 2024. The Big Ten, like it's going to be able to add some rivalries, but that USC and UCLA are probably put in different divisions like they do in Big Ten. They're probably not going to play each other. They said it's going to be an issue for not just the football players, but they said if you trickle down to the smaller sports like volleyball, even the baseball teams, fencing, wrestling, whatever, they got to do the travel too. They don't get to have the same amount of budget that the football program or even basketball programs even have at these schools. So they're not going to be able to fly guys, women and men out, to these across the country games and then have them back on Monday for class. They're gonna be going back and forth. Like this is gonna be a real big drain on them. But as we're seeing right now, I think because football seems to drive a lot of the money for the university in general. A lot of the football programs generate most of the money that keeps these other sports programs even around. So they're kind of like, look, football rules everything. If you have an issue with that, you guys can go kick rocks. That's basically what they're saying. Like ESPN, Fox Sports, all these other major sports networks are saying, we want to watch these. These are the matchups we want to watch, and these conferences are listening, and that's why they're getting these schools to come in. And people need to remember also they got to pay exit fees, millions of dollars to leave these conferences. These schools are just throwing the money now. They don't even care because they're looking at these. Big Ten has its own network. SEC's got its own network. The ACC's got its own. I'm pretty sure the Big 12 is going to get bigger, like as far as the network is concerned. So the money is piling in. What have you guys? I know it's been a lot. The last 6 months, there's been a lot of teams going over to different conferences. Not this year, but definitely for 2024. What do you think is going to do for the sport of college football?
You can go with Travis and take this one. I got nothing, man. I just know the root of all of it is obviously the dollars, them coins,
yep.
and whenever they find a way to make more of it, there's gonna be some realigning. I mean, I don't see how their ratings can get any better. I feel like that's going to be on a steady increase no matter what they do. But obviously, this is going to have a lot to do with TV deals, different, more money getting made, and maybe some schools that, might have been on TV not as much. Maybe they'll get the opportunity to be, but to be honest, I think it's still just affecting kind of the top colleges in the nation. I don't know how much of a trickle down effect it'll have on the rest of the schools. So that's really what I would find significant, but I don't know if that's really happened. I just think it's more of what's been going on with college football. So
yeah, it's a money play. I mean, it's all about the money. And I was reading like the Pac-12 could be done by next week, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I was while you were talking, Miles, I was reading and they're talking about like the ACC scouting Cal, Stanford, SMU. It just shows that money talks. Like, you have all these conferences with these big TV deals, and they have these donors, they have the connections to different bowls. They just have so many entities connected to them that they're just more attracted to these schools. And at the end of the day, these schools have to make their bottom line. They got to pay these huge, enormous coaches contracts. They got to, in the NIL, not the NLI, the NIL era, they want to make things attractive and be able to cut these deals for these players to bring them in. All that plays a factor into this. So I think like right now we're seeing the effects of all of that. All of the money plays that have been happening for the past 10 years, including NIL, are causing schools to put themselves in the best position to recruit, make money, and thrive. And unfortunately, the Pac-12 didn't evolve as some of these other conferences did. So, I mean, RIP, like Caleb said.
Yeah, it's crazy though right now. You look at Texas going to SEC next year. It's weird. Like the traveling is going to get insane. Like I think a big part of this too was a lot of the local fan bases. Like they were saying, Oregon and Oregon State are probably going to get split up, and there's a big rivalry over there in the Pacific Northwest, and especially locally for a lot of those people up there, and it's going to probably get split apart. And even in the Midwest, the Nebraskas and things like that, where for fans that can't really travel all that much, you think about a lot of these, especially Midwest, like a lot of these people RV truck or whatever like that to these games, because even if it's only an hour or two away, they can still get there. But if their team is playing if they're in Nebraska and now they're playing, up in Rutgers somewhere, or they're playing in Miami, and so they can't get over there, and then they're trying to compete with the other, students there as well, and then how they're going to play these games sometimes maybe within the same state sometimes, because some of these schools have several big colleges and could have games on Saturday now where they have a couple big games not within an hour of each other. The traveling nightmare that could be potentially opening up now. But again, I don't think they really thought about that. I think they see the money. They see potential for, having multicast games, kind of like they do on for Sunday Ticket and stuff now. Like I know before, like you could have games from 1 o'clock or wherever, but now they can kind of more focus now on they get the matches again, like they want to get the matchup they want to get. So now the other one that's, I think, the really big get that people want out there is Notre Dame. Now, look, I will preface this before I make my statement. I do not understand why Notre Dame for the last 20 years seems to get all this preferential treatment when nobody else gets it. Like they have their own thing on Saturday, like the NBC broadcast Notre Dame football games exclusively. I don't know anybody that gets that deal like on a major network. Like you go like Alabama and the SEC and stuff, but NBC broadcasts Notre Dame football games exclusively. I will never understand why Notre Dame, even like now, I get it. Like I get like if it back in the day was like Nebraska back in the 90s or Miami, or even if it was Alabama and Georgia now, I understand that. But for some odd reason, Notre Dame, who gets to pick its schedule every season, the only really powerhouse football program that gets to do that, Notre Dame has kind of made it very clear that they have no intention on joining anybody's conference and still continue to operate as business as usual. Obviously, this would be a huge gift for any conference, because if they were to get Notre Dame, that brings over that NBC money too, NBC Universal, because whenever Notre Dame plays, that other school also gets a check from that game. So if they were to bring them in conference, that just brings more money in there. So I'm assuming right now they're saying no, but money does talk, and the SEC comes calling, or the Big Ten. Here's another question for you guys: do the names change now at this point? But I think they have to change the name. Don't even put numbers in it now at this point, right? No Pac-12, no Big Ten. They got to call it something else. Because Pac-1. I feel like this isn't going to be the end of it.
Pac-1
like
is crazy.
they're gonna get into these conferences, maybe realize, oh, we don't really belong in here, and then try to dip out and go somewhere else. Like I don't know. Like I feel like now they just got to change. Don't put no numbers in the conferences anymore. Just create another new name for each conference, and then you can allow the teams to move around as they need to.
I'm gonna ask just because I haven't been too up on this one, but how many teams we talking that are shifting at this point? Are we talking like upwards of 10 plus?
It's got to be over 20.
Like way more, over 20 schools.
Like right now, like possibly this year.
Yeah.
Oh, this year it's got to
1,
be
2, 3, 4,
over
7.
a dozen at least this year, right?
Over a dozen.
Yeah, it's like around. It's like around 11, 11, 12.
And then like last year, it was like another 4 or 5 last year.
Yeah, I remember. I definitely remember where it's been seasons where it's been a couple of teams here and there, but this is probably like the most I've heard at one time. Out of nowhere, it probably has been more, but it seems like it's a lot more going on this season than it is in previous years as far as the changes.
Mm-hmm. And it's bad for the smaller conferences like the AAC, the Temples and the Memphises and the stuff like that. Like how are they going to be able to compete now? With these other Power Five. Like they really couldn't before, but now they definitely can. Like I don't know how you get the recruits. Like with the SEC alone, like they're going to be getting some schools, and you would have to think, regardless of what team you play for, the fact that you're playing in the SEC with potentially probably you're looking at future NFL players in that conference. It doesn't really matter what school you go to. You're going to be playing against the best of the best week in and week out. So you go to Ole Miss, you go to Vanderbilt, it didn't matter. You're going to be playing against the Georgias and Alabamas and Auburns and LSUs. You're going to be playing against those. And then when Texas gets there, like you're going to be playing against those schools. So, I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for a lot of schools. And somebody made a good point, like, Maryland now in the Big Ten. Now there's with Maryland when they went over 4 or 5 years ago when they went over to the AAC. They may have been longer than that. And from the ACC to the Big Ten, they really haven't gotten a foothold in that conference yet. They've been trying to. The Maryland football team seems to be a little bit better this year. Apparently, I don't know if you guys heard, there was a rumor going around that I think when one of the SEC schools was trying to pay Tagovailoa like money to transfer out of Maryland. Like they said they're going to give him like Kyle Trask money. Apparently, that's whatever they said. They said kind of money. They were going to pay him maybe upwards of $1 million, $2 million to transfer out of Maryland, and he decided to stay. He's deciding to stay at Maryland. So that's another part of this. That's another part of this as well, coming down the pike. Like with all these schools now entering the same pool now for limited amount of players with the same conference, there could be several teams. I know they're maybe entering the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever. They're still your more dominant Penn States, Michigan, Ohio State. They're just going to have that capital that if you get a recruit, they can just pay him. Like, hey, you want to transfer? We'll throw you $600K, $400K, right off on the books. I was watching Dan Le Batard the other day, and Dominique Foxworth on there. He was a Maryland alumni, and they asked him about how did he feel about the college football realignment, and he said it's a little bit different when you're playing. He's like, for the fans and the people who grew up with your dad or granddad or mom or whatever went to the school. You went to the school, and there's a certain stuff that goes with that. He's like, when you play for a lot of these college football and basketball programs, he's like, when you get there after your freshman year, all that majesty and all that college rah stuff goes out the window, and really it's just a business. He said his freshman year he was redshirted for I think 8 or 9 games of his first season. And then when they realized they had a chance to win the conference, they took away his red shirt and made him play those last 3 games to win the ACC. And then they played in the Orange Bowl. He said they played Florida that year. I think that was the Tim Tebow year at Florida, and they destroyed them. And they said, he's like, when you start seeing, and several coaches, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher now have said, oh, this is terrible for college football. Meanwhile, these guys are the richest people in their own states. When you look at state employees, it's not even close to how much money these guys are getting. I mean, Nick Saban makes millions of dollars. The state of Alabama, the school paid for his house. They paid for him to sell his house, and they over asking price. They bought his house over asking price. I think when he was before he was Alabama, and then when he moved there, they gave him a house. They had to pay anything for it. Nothing, no mortgage, no nothing. Pay everything for it. They pay the property taxes and all that for it. So every time I hear a coach complain, especially college football coaches, complain about any inequities or anything that doesn't seem to be going right, I'm like, that just goes in one ear out the other. You guys have been benefiting off this system for decades. The only thing I hope that comes out of this is that players get bigger NIL deals. That's all I'm hoping that comes really out of this.
Look, you get some more Angel Reese's, get more of those over in football. I mean, they're getting deals left and right. So, I mean, that's coming. That's definitely coming. And I think I wonder if some of these plays are to kind of like funnel more money to the schools because, a lot of the endorsements they may have had before are going directly to the players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but that could be something that's playing a part in all this. But I think the bigger these entities get, the more money it's going to be for the players.
Oh yeah, I mean, Angel Reese she's already like got, what was it? Bayou Barbie. She's got T-shirts out now. She's taking it. Look, these kids right now, like I sound old saying these kids, but these kids right now, like no, it's they know how to master. They know how to use, like, when they get their 15 minutes, especially the athletes. When they get their 15 minutes, they know how to capitalize that, especially in college athletics. When you start getting a little bit more attention, a little bit more shine, you got to take it and run with it. These colleges now are making millions and millions of dollars, and who knows how much money they're going to be making when these realignments come into fruition next year. And the TV deals that come with it, because guaranteed, a lot of these schools are making deals because they've probably already been talking to CBS and ESPN and stuff about getting package deals that broadcast their games and these matchups, and even at certain times. There's certain times of the day, 4:00, 5, whatever, for primetime access. And who knows, they could have potentially, forget, school and everything else. They could potentially have Thursday night games, Friday night games, take it back like a high school kind of thing.
Games.
I mean, they were talking about, are we going to still have Hawaii play at midnight like we used to? Like, no, that's probably not going to happen anymore. So it was coming. I think the money was just the money for college athletics in general, March Madness and basketball. And then, with the playoff expansion coming up in college football, I think this season with the college football expansion, like, they're going to have more teams in the playoff now. So it was coming. It'll be interesting to see. I'm intrigued to find out what happens. I'm going to be watching definitely Deion in Colorado to see what he does this year.
Yeah.
Definitely
just because he's been getting a lot of unwarranted heat for no reason. The man's kept to himself and doing his own business, and got coaches out here commenting on what he's doing. Yeah. He's minding his business.
My man getting surgery and they coming at him.
Right. Yeah. He might lose a foot. He might lose his foot. And they like, look, man, he's like, anyway, I'm excited to see what Colorado does, this year. I think they're going to be leaving. They're leaving the Pac-12 and they're going to, where are they going? The Big 12? I think they're going to the Big 12.
Yeah,
leaving the Pac-12 and going to the Big 12. So that'll be interesting to see. But anyway, on to our next topic. So we talk about Ravens training camp. Before we get to that, Broderick Washington did get signed today. He got his extension, so shout out to him. I think he said his mom is flying in on Saturday for the game. So that would be a nice, reunion for him. As for his mom, he was talking about how his mom was a single parent, and he learned how to grind from his mom and just watching her. And, that would be nice, $17 million richer. So a nice little gift. For mom and son, they celebrate. So shout out to that. Rashard Bateman was at practice today. He was activated off the PUP. The only player left on the PUP right now is J.K. Dobbins. It is rumored that he is expected to be back on Monday. So. That's what apparently the news coming out of Owens Mills is that they expect him back on Monday. I don't know if that means a deal is being hashed out right now or some sort of extension. We'll see. Also, the Javian Clowney was in the building yesterday. He would be. I think he'd be a nice addition to replace what Calais Campbell brought, having like as the, down defensive end instead of playing him an outside linebacker. His bread and butter is stopping the run. I think he'd be perfect for that here. Now with the Broderick Washington signing though, what does that mean for Madubuike? Obviously, he's been the better, I think, of the two, especially as far as pass rush is concerned. obviously it seems like it's going to probably cost more money. Now, maybe the Ravens are like, look, we're getting the easy stuff out of the way because we're not going to take more time with this Madubuike situation. Now, see, they still got J.K. It has seemed, though, that the Ravens on defense have been a lot more, outside of Roquan, have been a little bit more fiscally conservative, I'll say, when it comes to dishing out money, on the defensive side. Marlon got his money a while ago, but, I mean, they paid, obviously they paid Marcus Williams.
Yeah.
But outside of that, with the league, we saw with the running back situation, with guys like, I think Chris Jones is coming up on an extension soon too. They're expecting him to get a pretty big deal. He said he wants like close to Aaron Donald money. I don't know if he's going to get that. He's good and all, but
not on this team.
Nah, Chris Jones is. I don't know if he's going to get that in Kansas City, but
not on that team. Yeah, they kind of. I feel like they're still strapped. Like,
they don't, a lot of cash.
Kansas City lost out on a lot of free agents the past couple of years.
They still
Patty
win championships. Mm-hmm. They still win championships though.
Yeah,
they got Pat Mahomes, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe the sign when they drafted Travis Jones last year, and maybe they think he's going to possibly replace him if they can't get something done with Madubuike, that they got Travis Jones back there to kind of replace?
Yeah, I think that's what their hope is. I don't know. Does Madubuike have to get done as soon as possible, or like what do you think we're looking at? Because I mean, they might just let them play it out just to see, what it's looking like after the first couple of weeks.
I mean, I think he's up next year, right? Is he up next year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's up next season. So they don't have to pay him this year.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of going to play out. I think they're just going to let. This is usually what Baltimore does anyway. They're just going to let the play dictate their decisions. So I think maybe 6-7 games in, they'll probably be pretty clear on what they're going to want to do. Especially with starting out with the line that we have now, all the youth. We're going to need all of those guys starting out this year. It's not like we have the luxury of not needing them both right now. I mean, we still kind of need both of those guys. So I think, if one pulls away from the other in the first few games, then I think we'll see a deal a lot sooner than later. But outside of that, I don't think they're even concerned with that at this point, even though it does need to get done. I think it's seeing how they play it out, I think is going to determine when it's going to get done.
Yeah. I think, that's kind of like our MO, like letting it play out, and you have somebody waiting in the wings in case it goes left. Yeah. I think like Madubuike, though, like he's played himself into like a 12 to 15 annually, annual contract. But if he takes that next step, like, because he was on this trajectory and then he kind of like fell off a little bit. I don't know if he got nicked up, but if he gets on that trajectory that he was on at the beginning of last year, like he'd be looking at 20 to 25 million a year, that type of contract with him. And like, especially with a Pro Bowl appearance, like at his age, fresh off a Pro Bowl, he's a good pass rusher. I mean, he may play his way out of Baltimore, to be honest, which makes the Travis Jones, his development even more important. So, yeah, I think, like you said, like they got to let it play out. But if he's an all-pro type player, I mean, does Travis Jones become a trade piece at that point? If it's something where you want to lock Madubuike down because he's an all-pro guy on the interior of that line and he's just so disruptive and key to this defense, don't we got to pay him at that point?
Yeah, and I mean, again, I don't know. I think that Aaron Donald and a couple other guys have maybe shown the market to be a little bit like it seems like it's getting to where the running backs are with defensive tackles. Like I said, outside Aaron Donald, they're not really paying for defensive tackles. And that started a while ago, with them kind of focusing more on edge rushers and stuff like that. So I think the Ravens are going to wait and see. Obviously, after once the season's over, he's a free agent. But the Ravens that doesn't mean that he's going to be gone. I think the Ravens, they did draft him, and he has played. And I would think that the Ravens would get a little bit maybe better treatment from him as far as listening to a contract than somebody else. Because again, I don't think now not a lot of teams that value interior defensive tackles like the Ravens do. We've had a lot of good ones over the years, and I just think a lot of teams aren't willing to pay that kind of money. So look, the Ravens, like teams do, they take a risk sometimes when you let a guy hit free agency, but you let him see the market. You let him see what's out there. And the Ravens are kind of, if they're offering market value and they're like, hey, look, we're gonna stay here. Also, maybe longer term, we'll throw some void years in there or something, maybe a little bit incentives and stuff like that, and whatever. But again, I think that's further down the line. I think Eric DeCosta's got a little more pep in his step since he got Odell here, he got Lamar signed, and he's still signing guys, he's still working, obviously. So I mean, I think that's I think that will come. I think it will get done. Now Ronald here commented said he hopes we sign. I think Kyle Van Noy, or is it Ken Van Noy or Kyle Van Noy? Is it Kyle? I think it's Kyle.
Van Noy.
Van Noy.
That's all we gotta call him.
Over Clowney. I can understand that comment in a sense that Clowney has been a little bit underwhelming since he's been in the league. I think. Look, and I'll be the first one to say when he was playing at South Carolina, I think they played Michigan, and he lit up that running back. that right there made him a number one, like a first round pick. That was a first that hit right there, making him fumble the ball and recovering the fumble was like, oh, we gotta have him.
It was nasty.
When that one play right there made him a first round draft pick.
Yeah.
But since he's been in the league, he hasn't really been a good pass rusher.
He's
been a good edge setter. Like he kind of reminds me like a Jarrett Johnson type for the Ravens. Like he's not going to be exposed. He may get a sack here and there if he's left wide open, if no one's blocking him. But doesn't really have any pass rush moves. He's really more known as a run stop guy, and he's at his this is what he'd be his third or fourth stop now.
And I don't even think he's ever gotten double-digit sacks or anything like that. I think the highest he might have gotten has been like 9. So, yeah, I'm not mad at that take Roland made. I mean, the downside, obviously, with Clowney is his injury history. I mean, it's just a matter of can we keep him on the field. When he exited Cleveland, it wasn't on the greatest terms either. So, just as far as I think at some point he was on some I'm only going on the field on third downs. But but Browns have these kind of issues with a lot of players, so I'm not really going to hold that against them. But he definitely has not lived up to that signature moment that he had in college. And I think that's been really the knock. But I still think if he can remain healthy, he'd still be a solid edge, for us. But who's to say? I mean, Justin Houston had 14 sacks last year, and what year was he in? I mean, he's borderline retirement. So
14 to 15.
Yeah. So you never know. I mean, sometimes these players get to the team and get to a new team, and then they get some new juice, and I don't know where they're able to kind of reinvent themselves. And it's not like we're used to players going to Cleveland and just boosting their career in Cleveland. So, I'm down to give him a shot. I mean, over Van Noy, I do like what Van Noy brings. Obviously, their game is different, and I don't really have any beef with either one. So I would be happy with either signing, really.
Yeah, I think Clowney. I favor Clowney solely because, and I know we were talking about it yesterday. Like I like Clowney kind of filling that Calais Campbell role, like a big guy setting that edge. Being a good run blocker, being able to get his hands up and knock down some passes. I like him in that role, and that's why I kind of like him more than Van Noy. Like if I'm looking at an edge rusher, I'm looking at Robert Quinn because he's 2 years removed from an 18 sack season, and I think getting in here with Dr. Rush, or not going to say that other name, but
nah, go and say it. Nah.
Mr. Sack, Dr. Sack.
Dr. Sack.
I call him Mr. Sack. Mr. Sack.
Pause.
Hey, I'm not calling none of that.
I got a pause graphic on here, but yeah.
Doctor. They call it. They said his name is Dr. Sack. That's what they call him for the Ravens.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought, so I would just leave it there.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's again. This is I think when Calais left, we saw what this defense was without him last year. When he was the games and he was out, like the running defense was just not there. They weren't getting any stops. They couldn't set the edge. I think size of Clowney definitely matters there. I think also getting into the Ravens, just the locker room, the culture, I think would have him change his attitude maybe much, like instead of I'm only coming out on third downs. And when you play for a team that's actually won something recently, that's actually like in the playoffs, and you actually have a chance to be like star of a defense, like I think that would change for him. Now they did say today the practice was very physical, a very physical practice today. They said the defense was beating up on the offense. They said it was led by Roquan Smith. They said he was lighting up guys, running backs. They said Lamar did throw an interception, I think, to some guy, some cornerback, camp defensive back. I don't know who it is. But they did say over the last few practices, the Ravens have there's one, I think, either earlier this week or late last week, that one where they threw like 9 interceptions. That was obviously the headline. Everybody's like, oh man, this offense is struggling. Like, I thought there was going to be, lift off for this offense. I thought they're going to get more explosive. They're going to get more push the ball downfield. Because they said today they're doing a lot more checkdowns, a lot more intermediate stuff. So some people like Mike Preston and everybody else said, where's the deep ball at? Where's the stretching the field part of the game? And I had to take a step back a little bit, because sometimes when you listen to training camp news, and it's not just the Ravens, it's every team. I'm pretty sure everybody's got their issues of what they're seeing in training camp. The Ravens, with Lamar Jackson and Greg Roman, weren't really good at the middle of the field, like middle of the field stuff. They weren't really good at the 5 to 7 to 8 yard stuff. Like everything was 35 yards or bust. Like everything it was in the air, everything was Lamar hold the ball, run around a little bit, and then toss it downfield. Like those were the plays that Greg Roman would draw up. Everything. How many times do we complain, especially on the group chat? How many times do we complain about why is it taking so long for the wide receivers to get through their routes? Like why are they're running down the field and we're like they're 20 yards down. Everybody's 20 yards downfield. Why is there nobody running underneath? Why is there nobody running intermediate over the middle? And so when I hear the news like, oh, why they're doing check downs, why they're doing intermediate stuff, like, because they haven't done that in the last 5 years. They haven't done it. Mm-hmm. And they're working on that stuff now so it becomes second nature. That when Lamar gets in trouble, you don't have to necessarily take off all the time, because he didn't do that the last few years. He would, again, run around and look downfield for the big play all the time. But now if you get JK, you get Justice Hill, Duvernay, and some other guys maybe running underneath, you have some other outlets you can throw the ball to. That way, defenses, after a while, cued on that. They're like, oh, we'll just keep everybody back. So either Lamar takes off and runs and keep him in front of us, or we have a chance to pick the ball off or knock it down because we know they're throwing it up top. And they would do that all the time, the defense would. But if you add wrinkles into that and allow check downs and allow intermediate stuff, guys are running underneath. How many times we complain about why they only getting Duvernay out there on these jet sweeps? They would have Duvernay out there for one jet sweep, and that would be like once every 2 weeks or something like that. And then you wouldn't see him anymore. Like getting a guy like Duvernay into the slot, I think that's where he's going to make his money there. Those underneath routes, doing that Wes Welker, Cooper Kupp stuff. Right there, bam, catch the ball 5 yards, let him stretch it upfield. I think that's what Monken is going to want to do, is wanting to do with this offense, is not necessarily making Lamar make all the plays, but having everybody else make plays for Lamar. I think that's going to be key in this offense. Even though, like I said, there's struggles. That's why I had to pick quotation marks around this, because I'm like, it's not. I think you got to look deeper than what they're doing. And then when they mentioned, I said it late last week when they had the 9 picks, they said, one of the people said covering the Ravens said they were practicing third and longs all day.
Situational, yeah.
That's what they were practicing. I guarantee you, most NFL teams, when it's 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20, how many times do we hear the broadcasters and analysts, former quarterbacks, all of them say, not a lot of plays in the playbook for 3rd and 17? You know, a lot of it, you just a wing and a prayer. You hope maybe God misses his guy, or guy falls down or something like that, and guy gets open. Or maybe your player just makes a great play and breaks some tackles, but not a lot of plays in the playbook for 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20. So that was more for, I think, for the defense or even just the offense getting used to let's see what works. You know, They also did mention that Todd Monken has been a lot more aggressive with the offensive play calling in practice and not settling for field goals when they run scrimmages and stuff. Because how many times we've seen there, we just want to get close enough, let Tucker kick it. You just want to get close enough, let Tucker kick it. Was their biggest struggle last year was red zone. They could not score in the red zone. They could get there. Numerous times they got there, but their red zone percentage was one of the worst in the NFL for playoff teams. They got it. If they can fix that, they can just turn that 180 like they did back in 2019. I think they'll be straight. So right now, there's some obviously concerns from some people saying they're not doing this and not doing that. We're still a month away, folks. We still got a whole month until the first game. So I think I'll pump my brakes just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's still early, like you said. It's been a couple of weeks. I mean, that initial practice right at the end, what you said about the 9 picks, I'm like, that's exactly what I was saying. Like, it was situational. People were panicking, and this happens in every team. You're not gonna get consistency in any team in the first couple of weeks of camp. It just doesn't happen across the league. Any 32 teams. And like you said, for that situation specifically, they were practicing situational football, which I can respect because I'm like 3rd and long. I mean, how many games have we seen in the fourth quarter where we have one more opportunity and then on the last drive we get to 3rd and long super fast, and that was like, now what? And then we don't convert it, and then the game's over. So like, I'm sure Monken, obviously he's bringing in a new regime. We're switching up the whole offense, but I'm sure he looked back at our previous history and that's what happened. Like, he's looking at it and, this is the history of Baltimore. So I'm going to practice on some of those weaknesses that we had on top of redoing the whole offense as a whole. So I like where we're at in general with the team, just as far as how we're practicing and the fact that everything's just new. It's not more the same. Everything is different. With previous offense, even when we switch coordinators, it's kind of like we always see the same thing. We come out week 1 of the first season for the last several seasons and we see more of the same thing. It seems like Monken is finally.
Oh, we lost Trey.
Awesome. Well, I'll pick up from my bro right there. Yeah, Mike Preston, shut the hell up. There's no reason to panic. Like, and this is why. I've heard of so many practices and training camps where Tom Brady threw 4 picks in a practice, 3 picks. So I'm not worried about that. We're installing a new offense. And from what I've seen at the practices, we are working on so many timing patterns, so many timing routes. So those things take time to establish the flow, especially when we have so many West Coast offense concepts that are being built in to take advantage of, some of the good things that Lamar can do. So I'm not concerned about that. Plus, when I read up more on the practice, not only was it 3rd and long, but there were pass rushers in Lamar's face, in Tyler Huntley's face, and there were a couple tip balls as well. Now, some of them, they were probably just ill-advised throws. We're trying to figure things out, but that's understandable. I mean, that was one practice. They came back their next practice after that horrific 9-interception ordeal, and they said the offense was killing the defense. I mean, everybody was accurate from the QB standpoint. We were catching passes. We were great in the red zone. But I think the one thing I've noticed throughout this camp is when a defense decides to be physical, I just think our defense is just not getting enough credit from these practices. Like, if you can't be physical with our defense, and I think our offense is finding that out, which is great because it'll prepare them for the season and the teams they'll face. But I think this makes me more excited about our defense than concerned about our offense.
Yeah, and I agree. I think they even said, the attitude from the team in this training camp is a lot more positive this year than obviously look last year. They had 5 or 6 guys on the pup list, and Lamar's contract still weighing and hanging over him and stuff like that. But this year, it sounds like again Roquan's now in camp. He's like he wasn't in camp last year with the Ravens. He's in camp this year, and he can kind of set the attitude for this defense. And Mike McDonald is running this offense, running this defense again. Now bringing him back in, and I think, like I said, again, adding Odell to this team. They've already mentioned like him making some of the catches in training camp. He made like a one-handed grab, a 40-yard touchdown catch, and again, the superstar presence of Odell, I think, can't be understated. I think they're being talked about here, but I think a lot of people in the NFL media, especially nationally, I've kind of like, oh, we got to wait and see on Odell. We got to wait and see. But I think here locally, like in Baltimore, I think that Odell has definitely grabbed the attention of, like, he's already starting to talk like a Baltimore native now. He's dyed his hair purple, and he made a statement, said if he didn't get hurt in the Super Bowl game, he was going to have 200 yards and like 3 touchdowns or something like that. If he didn't get hurt in that Rams Super Bowl. So look, I think this is the first time he's felt this good in a long time. I think having that whole year off for him, I think helped getting himself right. And also I think that again, like I said in the last show, I think Lamar having more control of this offense, it'll be interesting. We're not going to be able to see it obviously in preseason. We'll see it until week 1 what this offense really looks like. Obviously, I think that, like Travis said, like you said, this defense has always been, they give a lot more credit. They give credit to the Ravens defense every year. But this year, it feels like this defense, if Ojabo and Owe, if Owe's really, they said Owe's been working more on his power rush moves than speed rush. They said the last couple of years, he's been working on speed rush and it hasn't worked. And he's been working now, focusing more on power rush moves. And that's been, they said, a lot more. You've seen a lot of positive signs from Owe getting to the quarterback, breaking up breaking up the line and causing mayhem there. So if he can harness that, and then Ojabo is being able to be that outside pass rusher. You still got Roquan in the middle. If we get Marcus Williams for a full season this year, before he got hurt, I think he had 3 picks in 2 games. This defense could be scary. This defense could be really. I know that all the focus and everything else has been on the offense in the offseason, but this defense is going to quietly, I think, under the leadership of McDonald and Roquan, could be one of the, if not the best defense in the NFL this season. I'm just saying.
Bully ball. That's what they're going to bring, bully ball. I mean, like when I've seen, like at the practices I've seen, and these weren't fully padded practices. Like I didn't get the pleasure of seeing them in pads, but you could just tell like the attitude is just on some bully ball type stuff. Kyle Hamilton, like I knew he was big and he had this reputation, but I think he's going to bring a nasty demeanor this year. Now that the game is slowed down for him, and then of course Roquan is going to be Roquan, but like from what I'm reading, like this defense is just, they're going to punk everybody. I honestly feel that. I think if they don't play well, it may just be communication or mistakes, but I think physically they're going to like bring it every week.
Yeah. I think Roquan with that green dot this year, from the top of the year playing a full season, like I just think the momentum is just going to be crazy for this defense. I think that defense under his leadership is going to make all the difference. I mean, we all love Chuck Clark, but he really wasn't like a true anchor of a defense. I mean, Roquan is going to be the true anchor of that defense, and I think everything is going to run through him. And with him just having a full camp in Baltimore, starting off as the leader in Baltimore, I think McDonald now he can actually show what he was brought here to do, because he got the pieces around him on that defensive side of the ball to actually execute what we're looking to do. So I think it's going to be great. I mean, even with kind of our uncertainty with our second cornerback position, everything like that. I think we are surrounded by enough guys, in other positions that we kind of compensate for that. I know in the last show I said that it was a big concern. It still is.
Yeah.
But I think that, with what we're surrounded by, I think whoever we put there, I think we're still going to be solid enough to be a top 5 defense for sure. And nobody's talking about us defensively this year at all.
Everything's on offense. Yeah,
we're not hearing anything because it's not like we made any major splashes or whatever the case may be. But we've seen it, as a Ravens fan, as like us guys who've been watching every single game to a T. It's like we seen with Kyle Hamilton, like you were speaking on Kyle Hamilton. Like I think he's going to be like, he's going to be that dude. Like he's going to be all pro, I believe, this season. And it won't even be, we got a chance to get a few all pros. We could probably get like three all pros this year, or 4. Because I'm thinking Roquan, Marlon can probably jump back in that conversation. I'm thinking Kyle Hamilton. And who knows, Marcus Williams might jump in the mix. Like you just never know. I just think we got enough enough talent this year, or even Patrick Queen. Like nobody's even talking about Patrick Queen. Like look how great he played once Roquan got traded to the Ravens. How his game elevated. So I think sky's the limit for that defense, and I'm excited for the potential. But I really like how they're flying around the ball. In practice, like I just don't remember seeing it that active back there in a while. So sky's the limit for those boys.
I think a big what we need to see, what we as Ravens fans have been dying to see for a while, is that Ravens defense football. We've been good statistically, right? Before we've seen good defenses here the last few years, statistically, but it hasn't really felt like that Ravens defense, like those defenses that Ray Lewis used to command. Like you said, Travis, bet bully ball. They go into a stadium, whether they be at home or away, and we're going to impose our will on you. It's your job to get us off our game. It's your job. We're going to play our game. We're going to hit you. We're going to talk trash to you. We're going to throw your helmets across the field. Like we're going to get in your face. We're going to get in your psyche. Like it feels like that attitude is bringing Bart back a little bit. It seems like. I'm hoping that's what we see. And he said it'd be nice to see like a more like you saw Kyle Hamilton last year being a little bit more, towards the end of the season. I think he got more confident in his play. It'd be nice to see Kyle Hamilton this year take that next step and be a little bit more aggressive. Take that next step and be a little bit more confident and talk trash a little bit. He's out there talking trash to the team and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that. And not to mention, from what everybody's saying, I think Peter King and some other national football heads or whatever have said that they think Zay Flowers is going to be the guy this year. They said not only do they think he's going to be the best offensive rookie, they think he's going to possibly win Rookie of the Year this year. They're like the way he runs his routes. They said, I know he's only like 5'9", but he plays like an X. They're like he plays the outside. He's like, that reminds me of that's why Steve Smith fell in love with him. He's like, he plays like Steve Smith. If he plays like Steve Smith Sr., you can't ask for more than that.
Yeah.
You can't ask for more than that, man. He plays like Steve Smith Sr.
Yeah, I'm thrilled about Zay, man. Like,
yeah, Zay's gonna. I'm excited to see him on the field.
I'm almost like giddy a little bit, like for Saturday. Like I don't know how much he'll play Saturday, but they give him
if he plays at all. Yeah,
if he plays at all, I don't know how they're gonna play it. But if he has a drive or two, I just can't wait. Like for what it seems like with Monken's offense, it doesn't seem like he's assigning too many receiver roles. I mean, I know it's going to be a 1, 2, 3, first, second, third string, whatever. But it seems like Zay's going to be playing every position at wide receiver. It seems like Odell might be playing every position at wide receiver. So,
and that's what we haven't had in a while, right? We haven't been able to have guys that can rotate from the slot to the outside. The guys are just pinned in their position because that's the only thing they can play.
And even the guys we haven't even been mentioning, like no one's really been talking about Nelson Aguilar like that.
Yeah.
But it seems like even with him, he's been making splash plays in camp as well. So it's a lot to take in, man. We haven't had this in probably ever.
This has never happened. Yeah. The closest we got to this is when T.O. signed with us for like 24 hours, and then left when he realized Kyle Bowler was the quarterback.
Boy.
Yeah, crazy.
That's the last time we got this close.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
So before we get out here, talk about, I guess, obviously the Hall of Fame induction was this past weekend. So Joe Thomas, Rondé Barber, Don Coryell, Darrelle Revis, Chuck Howley, Joe Klecko, DeMarcus Ware, Ken Riley, and Zach Thomas. Was there anybody on that list you felt like maybe shouldn't have got in this time? Was there anybody on that list? I have one, but
go ahead and give you one because
I think it was Zach Thomas.
Zach Thomas.
Really?
I think he was good. I don't think he was a like. I think he may have been past like the first or second round. I think he would eventually have gotten in.
Yeah,
but I don't think he was a first round. This was his first chance at it, and he got in. So I was like,
oh, first ballot. Yeah.
First.
I didn't realize that this was first ballot, but
this was his first one. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about first ballot. I don't know if I'll argue that he deserves to be there, but yeah, first ballot. You got to do a lot to be first ballot, and I don't remember Zach Thomas being like, you know what I mean? Because when I think of first ballot, I think of like Ray Lewis and guys like that. Like I'm not trying to be a homer, but like he's just the perfect example of who you think of when you hear first ballot. But I mean, maybe I just need to look up his stats and be reminded because I don't know. First ballot is a lot.
Honestly, initially I was thinking Rondé Barber, but then I had to go back and check my man's resume, and I didn't realize he got 5 Pro Bowls. I just always think of him as a slot corner and not really an outside guy. So, and then him playing in that Tampa 2 zone, I was just like, Rondé is solid. He's good. He's a Pro Bowl player, but Hall of Famer, I don't know.
But does 5 Pro Bowls give you Hall of Fame though? Like, I mean, is that like a lot?
It's because of that deep. Like you run a Super Bowl, he's part of that defense.
That's true.
He got 47 picks.
He had 28. He had 28 sacks as a cornerback. 28 sacks is a lot for a cornerback and for his career. And he had 47 interceptions.
That is nuts.
So,
all right, when you add all of that together, then
I don't think he made a lot of. He wasn't like a guy like a Dion or a Darrelle Revis or whatever. Like he shut down guys a lot, or like pick sixes. Like he wasn't. He was quiet with the numbers. But when you look at the stats, like 47 interceptions. Yeah.
And Darrelle Revis was first ballot too, then, right?
He was first ballot. But Darrelle, I mean, they never named an island after that man. But Darrelle Revis was in his prime. No one threw to him through his side. Like that's. Darrelle Revis, I think, definitely deserved to be our first ballot Hall of Famer. DeMarcus Ware was probably one of the greatest pass rushers of his era, for sure. Joe Thomas, again, he was the best thing you can do as an offensive lineman is be stability. He was there for a long time. He played with the Browns for most of his career.
Joe Thomas was top for most of that.
That man made All-Pro. He was like a 5-time or 6-time All-Pro. Yeah. Something like that. Like he was one of the greatest like offensive linemen of all time. So
not mad at that.
This class didn't really feel there wasn't a lot of hoopla around it. It was like
honestly, I didn't even know until like literally early this week this was happening. So I didn't even realize until I did realize the preseason game is when I even found out who was being inducted.
So it was kind of like, there's some what do they call not legendary. What do they call it? Like after you pass the
legacy
legacy. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. The legacy inductions where they like pass the time limit or whatever, and then the senior crew comes in and picks.
Yeah, it's like one guy on here. It's like 45 years he's been eligible, and they just decided to let him in. I'm like. There's other people, man. Chad Johnson ain't in there. Terrell Owens made it. Chad Johnson needs to be a Hall of Famer. He was a top receiver for years. You know what I mean? And I'm even looking sideways at DeMarcus Ware, but I need to loop back.
I think DeMarcus Ware deserved to be
on his first go though.
That's my thing. Like, there's a few guys. First go sounds kind of crazy. Joe Thomas makes sense to me because he's been Joe Thomas from the first year.
He's been All Pro his like whole career.
He left out. But some of these other guys, first ballot is just crazy. Like I just to me, I feel like you got to do way more. When you read me Rondé Barber's stats, I was like, all right, cool. I'm not going to argue that. That's a lot of numbers in that period of time. But yeah,
well, that's like what's his name? The wide receiver for the Cowboys finally got in 2-3 years ago. Drew Pearson.
Oh, Pearson.
He was been eligible for like 30 years. That man was campaigning on social media and everything. He put him in the Hall of Fame.
Maybe it's just an oversaturated position to make the Hall in. Maybe I don't know.
But this is Dion. I think Dion made this statement 2 years ago about talking about the Hall of Fame and said like as of late he's been highly critical about like the selections in the Hall of Fame. He's like, look,
him and Shannon Sharp both.
He's like, if they're in the same, if we're supposed to be the elite of the elite, we're not just. This is not the Hall of very very good. Yeah, you played 15 years. Congratulations, but were you one of the best at your? You were like Shannon Sharp revolutionized the tight end position. The reason why guys like Travis Kelce, Antonio Gates, and those guys can do what they have done is because of guys like Shannon Sharp,
right?
And Ray Lewis and like those. When you induct somebody in the Hall of Fame, you can as I think Dion said or Shannon said, I can't remember which one. I think Shannon Sharp said it. Can you tell the story of the NFL without this player? That's what he said. That's the correct. Can you tell the story of the NFL without that guy? When they played, can you tell that story over those 10 or whatever plus years without them? Mm-hmm. If you can, they probably don't need to be in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were good, but were they great?
Yeah.
Is Steve Smith in?
No.
I don't
Steve
think
Smith's not in.
So I'm looking at this list, right? So Steve Smith has been eligible for a year now. He's not in. Patrick Willis has been eligible for 3 years. He's not in. I know why Darren Sharper's not in. Dwight Freeney's not in. Ben Coates, which that's a throwback name.
Dwight Freeney's
no, Joey Porter's not in.
If DeMarcus Ware is in, Dwight
Freeney. I feel like Dwight Freeney should be in.
Yeah, if DeMarcus Ware is in, Dwight Freeney needs to be in.
Andre Johnson, Hines Ward.
Hines Ward's not in?
No, Herman Moore.
Herman Moore? Come on now.
I can't believe Hines Ward's not in.
Reggie Wayne.
If Torrey Holt's in, Reggie Wayne needs to be in.
I'm looking
because Torrey Holt got in last year, right?
Troy Vincent. I don't know if you would throw him in.
Yeah, he was one of my favorite players. Troy Vincent was my favorite player. He played the
Eagles. Nice, yeah. I think it's just I think it's just so many wide receivers. I think it's really just.
It's a log jam. It's a log jam there. It's like the numbers really got to separate you.
Yeah.
They're looking at.
We talked about just like Hines Ward, though. Super Bowl.
Yeah. Depending on those Steelers teams,
Yeah.
Now they said the team that there's some for next year. The players that will be their first time eligible for the Hall of Fame will be Julius Peppers, Antonio Gates, Haloti Ngata, Brandon Marshall. I want to put on here Sebastian Janikowski for the kicker. They're probably not going to let Greg Hardy in for obvious reasons.
Yeah, definitely not going.
Andrew Luck is up. I don't know if he'll get in. Anybody else worth noting? Nope, that's it. So those are like the first timers. I definitely Julius Peppers, Antonio Gates for sure. First ballot Hall of Famers.
I think they probably got the best shots at it. Yeah. I think Ngata has a pretty good shot.
I think a lot of it too is
but
when they cast the votes, or I think a lot of it too comes down to who you're up against that year. Like especially those first time guys that are like you already know. So Julius Peppers and Antonio Gates are they're getting slots. Mm-hmm. Now it just comes down to who the other like 4 or 5 guys.
Yeah, that's true.
I kind of wish the NFL did like what MLB does. Like MLB didn't even let anybody in this year at all. They said nobody from that list deserved to be.
Wow.
No. So I'm like, I was like, nobody, like nobody. I was like, I would kind of wish the NFL take a little bit of a note from Major League Baseball. Like, no, we're gonna make this like an elite thing. Like, you just can't get in because it's your turn. You waited 30 years. Here's your chance to get now. No,
man. The biggest tragedy is Terrell Davis played 4 years total, 5 years total. He's in the Hall of Fame because he had that 2,000-yard season, but Tiki Barber is not in the Hall of Fame, and he has 17,000 scrimmage yards.
Mm-hmm.
17,000.
Barry Sanders not in the Hall of Fame. You talking? I'm like, forget numbers, right? Impact. They still showing Barry Sanders highlights to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, come on.
Impact alone.
Impact.
You got to let Barry in.
That has to be part of it too. Like, I'm pretty sure a lot of running backs there will be like, yeah, Barry Sanders is in the Hall of Fame. Like, that man was an all-star in college and played against probably the worst offensive line in football history. They said if you tallied up Barry Sanders' yards that he ran around just to get past the line of scrimmage, he'd be like all-time leader in rushing yards. So, like, you add up all the yards that man ran around. Like, jeez.
Yeah.
Man, Torrey Holt's not in the Hall of Fame, and he was
Okay,
part
Torrey
of the
Holt's not in.
all-decade team.
Oh, did Isaac Bruce go in?
Isaac's in, right? I think Isaac's in.
I think Isaac's in.
Isaac Bruce might have been the one that went in.
So if Torrey goes in, if Torrey or Reggie Wayne go in, then the other has to go in.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne, Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, like that.
Yeah.
I mean, if when Reggie Wayne gets in, then definitely Torrey Holt's got to get in or vice versa.
Greatest show on turf.
Like, I mean, come on. So there's a lot of players I think that have been left out. Like I said, Shannon Sharp's been campaigning for Sterling Sharp to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So again, it's these writers, man. It's these people that have the vote. Their vote is that matters, and they try to wield it as much as they can, and they let people in whether they like them or not. Remember, this is the same organ. This is the same NFL. I mean, the Hall of Fame group, whatever, who votes on this. This is the same people that made sure that Terrell Owens was not a first ballot Hall of Famer because they didn't like him. He didn't do anything. Wasn't arrested for anything. No domestic abuse or nothing like that because he didn't like the media.
Yeah,
and they made sure he wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, you're always going to include the politics. Always going to have something to do with it. You got to play nice.
Yeah.
Try to play the game, apparently.
Before we get out of here, touch on something real quick that I saw just because it's local to the area where I'm in. The Ron Rivera made a comment, I think, yesterday about Eric Bieniemy, saying that some of the players and himself are a little taken aback by the intensity that Eric Bieniemy has brought to training camp. And then he came back today and said, "Oh, I put my foot in my mouth. I shouldn't have said that." And it just kind of led to this. Some players and other, people saying this is why the Commanders have been bad for a while now. Like, you guys aren't used to winning. Eric Bieniemy is used to winning. So he's bringing an intensity here that you guys aren't used to, because he's like, y'all, like, I'm here to make this offense like elite this year. Now, how much they're going to do with Sam Howell, I don't know. But the fact that the intensity is scaring them, even the head coach. And even Tyreek Hill came out in support of Eric Bieniemy, like, nah, this was every day, at Chiefs practice. Like, this was.
That tell you the difference right there.
That's when winning organizations, right?
Yeah.
When you're used to winning, there's a certain kind of mindset you have, right? I mean, so hopefully, Ron Rivera again. This is Ron Rivera's a little bit on thin ice. They had some opportunities last year to actually make the playoffs. They had a really good chance to. And I think he left, was it Carson Wentz or somebody in there a little too long in one of those games that was like an NFC East game, and they ended up losing that game. So he's a little bit on this new regime coming in. I don't think it's going to have a lot of rope for Ron Rivera, to hang on to. So Eric Bieniemy could get a head coaching gig if that offense. Yeah. You got to think about it though. They got Terry McLaurin back there, right? They just drafted Dotson? They got Dotson there now, the other side wide receiver. If they have a healthy, was it Logan Thomas at tight end? Mm-hmm. They're going to be bringing back the running back Antonio Gibson. But they just signed like another running back too, didn't they?
I don't know.
He just signed. What did they say? I don't know. Brian Robinson Jr. Right? They got Brian Robinson Jr. Out of Texas. So and their defense. Look, Chase Young is still there. They still got Jared. They got Allen and Jonathan Allen and Sweat and those guys. Like they haven't lived up to their ability yet. But if Eric Bieniemy brings any of that creativity he had in Kansas City to Washington, it could be a little bit of a pretty decent. But again, just that comment right there by Ron Rivera saying, yeah, the players and myself are a little concerned about how intense this man. It's professional football. Like, what are we doing, right? What are we doing out here if we're not going to be intense?
I'm trying to figure out how intense could it be? Like, it's the NFL. Y'all literally governed by every rule book, every rule in the book. Like, you're literally not allowed to do anything strenuous.
Right, this ain't the 80s where the coaches could smack you upside. They could throw stuff at you.
Even 10 years ago, like, everything's different. You can't even practice too much. Like, you'll get draft picks taken if you do too much. So, like, I'm trying to figure out what type of intensity you're talking about.
Honestly, it sounds like sabotage, man. Like, look, this guy is like doing all these great things. I know I'm on the hot seat. Let me throw this out here in the media so, I can make myself look good. That's what it sounds like to me, because I don't know another coach that would be so public about their assistant coach being
too intense, right? Yeah,
like usually like building them up, like, hey, this guy's intense. He's helping us change this culture. He's killing it. This sounded like it was so negative. It sounded like sabotage. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, it sounds like buyer's remorse almost. Like they're like, we're not really feeling this dude.
No, I think you're right, Travis. I mean, with the new regime there now, they don't really have any loyalty to anybody. So I'm pretty sure they're looking, Magic Johnson and them are looking at like Josh Harris. They're looking at, if Eric Bieniemy kind of stands out more as the OC, like if he looks at the unit, the offensive unit, they look at the unit like they're coached pretty well. They're running smooth and everything. But Ron Rivera, Riverboat Ron, and doing his, taking his chances and causing them to lose games like he did last year, he could be out. He could be out of a job. And Eric Bieniemy could be taking that spot.
And his
especially Magic Johnson kind of being front-facing now. Magic Johnson being more front-facing, because remember, Josh Harris also owns the 76ers and the Flyers, I believe. So he's kind of more focused on the Philly stuff. Magic Johnson's going to be kind of more front-facing, I think, with the Commanders. So if, Ron Rivera may be looking at over his back, like, if I mess up, Magic Johnson's going to pay Eric Bieniemy in my place. So you could be right. There could be a little bit more drama to this as the season goes on. We'll see.
Yeah. All we need to see is that first loss.
Right. We see that offense, and with Ron Rivera's like, who do you blame this on? Oh, man, I'm not going to name names, but, if we just practice a little bit harder on offense, before games, and, guys are more responsive, I think, to the coach. I'm not going to say who, but, they're more responsive.
Players might try to ride with him, too, because, the players love Rivera. Like, he's
a player's coach. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting that dynamic, because, Bieniemy, this is not the last stop. He wants a head coaching gig. So when you have that kind of dynamic now in the locker room, new ownership, Ron Rivera is on the hot seat. Eric Bieniemy is a new fresh face coming in.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever heard a coach. We've heard recently a coach talk about other coaches, with Sean Payton talking about Hackett, but I've never heard of it internally saying, yeah, our coach is a little too much. It's a little too much.
Got them head coach aspirations, man. It's kind of weird when you're getting passed up for head coaching jobs and you just got to settle for this one, and now we just got to see what happens.
Right.
So it'll be interesting.
Right. Well, this has been a good, I think, first live show, visual, got some video. Thanks everybody for watching. Obviously, we'll repost this on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and all that good stuff, so you can watch it again. Thank you guys for listening. Watching football this Saturday against the Eagles. I'm not going to say, I guess, right now what we expect them to do, because this is their first game. I don't know who's going to be out there. Like, I don't expect Lamar. I don't expect Odell, Bateman, J.K. obviously not going to be out there.
Keaton, what's his name? Keaton Mitchell?
Oh yeah, Keaton Mitchell. Yeah.
I'm excited to see that. I mean, they've been hyped. Sorry, I know we're ending, but that's going to be probably the guy I'm going to be looking for the most.
What position did he play?
Running back.
Okay.
Yeah. The Ravens have to decide if they're going to keep, 3 or 4 running backs, because typically they're not going to keep 4, but they could if he turns out to be that dude. So the JK thing could be deeper than what it is. Like if you keep playing around, I heard Keaton is going crazy in camp right now.
Yeah. He's actually taking Melvin Gordon's slot. Melvin Gordon ain't been
Yeah,
participating
Melvin.
as much.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm kind of I'm hoping to see maybe if Deontay Demas Jr. from Maryland is out there and get some play. Like I said, I'm excited. We haven't heard a lot about the wide receivers in camp outside of Odell and like the big four. We haven't heard really much about everybody else. So, obviously preseason is this they're mostly their time to shine because we know the top guys aren't going to be playing. It'd be nice to see Zay out there for maybe a play or two. It would be nice just to see. But obviously we don't want to, our injury history right now this season has been pretty good. It's been pretty good this offseason.
Yeah.
I think they want to keep it that way. So we won't. I know. I guess Josh Johnson's going to get the start, or is it going to be? I don't. They've been saying he's been getting the two. He's been playing with the twos a lot during training camp, and it's kind of been Huntley been with the threes and the scout team. So they're both going to play, but right now Tyler Huntley seems like he may be on his way out right now.
Didn't they technically sign him?
Yeah, they signed it. He got restricted. Was it tendered?
Yeah, they tendered him. He got about 2 years, I think.
Yeah, but isn't it funny? Remember just 2 years ago or a year ago, fans were like, "Nah, man, Huntley could be our starting quarterback."
Yeah, they were smoking like
this man may make it as the backup quarterback for his team. It may end up on the practice squad.
Yeah, Johnson been doing his thing. He has a strong arm too.
Yeah, because with Roman's offense, it made sense.
Yeah, but with this, I don't think he fits in this Monken offense.
I don't know if it's not the same.
And then look, Pat Ricard trying to find a spot too because he's practicing the offensive line now. Like I don't even think Monken's going to be using the full. It doesn't even sound like Monken's using the fullback. It seems like in practice.
Doesn't sound like it.
If he's playing the offensive line, like, it doesn't even sound like he's going to be using running back. Fullback like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see who's out there, who shines and whatnot, and who takes the next step. Because again, I think it's gonna be interesting to see who plays, especially at the secondary, the cornerbacks, especially because of the injuries they've had as of late, and they still not exactly the deepest that they want to be. So it'd be nice to see if some guys shine a little bit, and of course there'll be some camp cuts I think in a week or two. So they'll probably pick up some guys, but thanks everybody for watching. Make sure you follow us. Like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you guys next week. Oh, and I hope the Ravens lose this Saturday. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this preseason win streak they keep talking about.
They're so proud of
that. I
23 games.
I can't stand it. Lose. I hope Monken does it on purpose. Hope they get to the goal line. He just like fumble. They just like fumble the ball. Just fumble the ball. Don't win the game.
We'll lose their preseason game. They're gonna sound the alarm.
Oh yeah, right, man. Look, the local media because of how much they.
We can't even lose in practice. Can you imagine we lose the preseason game?
How much the fans here have latched on to that preseason win streak.
It's crazy.
Browns fans should be excited about that. Texans fans should be excited about that.
Yeah.
Not Ravens fans. We have higher standards. We should have higher standards.
We do.
I hope they lose one of these games. One of these 3 games, I hope they lose. End it. I don't want to hear any more news articles wasting ink on this mess. Anyway, sorry my little rant. But
understood.
That's it. We'll catch you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.